Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank all the committee members of Bhuj branch, Gandhidham, and Anand branch for welcoming me for this session. So let's begin with. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So today we will be dealing with the practical aspect to GST. So first of all, now today there are four contents to be covered. First, accounts and records. Second, returns. Third, EV bill, and fourth, e-invoicing. So you all might be aware about the knowledge of GST from the books. So today we will be going to see the practical aspect that going to be implemented while for the upcoming contents under GST. First of all, we'll see about the accounts and records under GST. Chapter 8 of CGST Act cover the two sections, Section 35 and Section 36. Section 35 talks about the accounts and records to be maintained, and Section 36 talks about the period of retention of accounts. And under Rule 8 of the CGST rules, Rule 7 of the CGST rules covers the three rules, Rule 56, 57, and 58. 56 talks about the maintenance of records, maintenance of accounts by the registered person. 57 talks about the generation and maintenance of the electronic records, and 58 talks about the records to be maintained by the owner or operator of godown or warehouse and transporter. Now, first of all, I would like to ask one question, that whether it is a new compliance to GST for maintaining the accounts and records? No. Earlier in excise also, there was an obligation to maintain the daily stock account, which contained the details regarding the goods produced, manufacture, opening balance, quantity produced or manufactured, inventory of goods, quantity removed, its assessable value, the amount of duty payable, and particulars regarding the amount of duty paid. Also, in VAT and service tax, you have to maintain the up-to-date records of your business. So it is not a new concept, but yes, it is an upgraded concept under the GST. Now, first of all, who are required to maintain accounts under GST? Every registered person under the GST has to maintain the respective accounts and records. So what do you mean by the person? The person has been defined under section 2 of subsection 84 of the CGST Act, which covers individual, HUF, company, firm, LLP, association of persons, body of individual, whether they are incorporated or not in India or outside India, foreign companies, local authority, central government, state government, society, trust, any artificial judicial person which are not covered from the above list. So this is a person of the list who are required to maintain the accounts and records under GST. Now, second, what are the types of account? Types of account to be maintained by the registered person. It should be true and correct. Now, what I mean by the true? The true means it should be accurate and exact. And in terms of correct, it should be error free from errors. Perfect. So true and correct account should be maintained by the registered person. Now, where he has to maintain such books of accounts? He has to maintain such books of accounts at the principal place of business. So now this is the place from where you are conducting your day-to-day business operations. So this is the premise where you're bound to keep and maintain records and accounts. And also at each and every additional place, such as godowns, warehouses, storages, etc., where you are keeping your stock or maintaining such premise as your sales office, then the respective accounts and records shall also be maintained and kept at that premises. Perfect. Second, now accounts and records to be maintained, but in which relation they have to be maintained? So there are 5 relations in respect of which the accounts and records has to be maintained. First of all, production or manufacture of goods. In production and manufacturing, you have to maintain the monthly production accounts, and also you have to maintain the quantitative details of raw materials or services used in manufacturing. Also, the service supplier has to maintain the quantitative details of the goods procured and the input services he has received. So earlier slides also we have seen that in excise you are maintaining the daily stock accounts. So in GST also you have to maintain the production daily production accounts, monthly production accounts. Second, in relation to inward and outward supply of goods or services or both. So in relation to supplies, it will include the goods imported, exported, supplies attracting RCM, and also the relevant documents like invoices, bill of supply, debit notes, credit notes, delivery challans, receipt vouchers, payment vouchers, refund vouchers, etc. So in this inward and outward supply, these were the documents in relation to which the accounts and records has to be maintained. Third one, in case of stock of goods, as discussed, in old regime, you are maintaining the daily stock account. So the same concept has been borrowed and you have to maintain the opening balance, receipts, supplies, goods lost or stolen or destroyed or written off or disposed of by way of gift, free, sample, and the balance of stock, including raw materials, finished goods, scrap, and wasted thereof. So these are the accounts in relation to which the stock of goods has to be maintained. Fourth one, in relation to the output tax payable and paid. Now, in that relation, the documents will be relating to the output payable. This output payable will also include the reverse charge payable. So the output which has been paid through cash or by utilizing the input tax credit. Now, the input tax credit that you have utilized, claimed, and disposed of by discharging against the output liability in relation to which the accounts has to be maintained. Now, in addition to this, you have to also maintain the separate accounts for advances received, advances paid, and advances adjusted. Now, the tax payment on advances is only in case of services. From 15th November 2017, goods have been exempted from the same. So, in case of supplier of services, if you are receiving some advances, then on such advances, the registered person has to dispose the GST liability respectively. Now the last one, in case of input tax credit availed, the input tax credit availed has to be maintained in relation in respect of all supplies, including eligible, ineligible, blocked ITC, reversal of ITC under section 42, 43, etc. So in this relation, all the documents, the respective documents have to be maintained. So these are the 5 relations in respect of which the accounts and records has to be maintained. Next one, the form, in which form you will be required to maintain, either in physical form or in electronic form. The physical form we have seen in the previous slide. Now in electronic form, which things are to be kept in mind before implementing this. Now in electronic form, make sure you are maintaining the record of each and every entry. Any entry in registered accounts and records shall not be erased or overwritten, and or in respect of all incorrect entries also. Otherwise, then those of clerical nature shall be scored out under attestation, and thereafter the correct entry shall be recorded, and where the registers and other documents are maintained electronically, the log of each and every entry deleted, edited shall be maintained. And the last and the important thing, every electronic document shall be authenticated by digital signature. So these were the 2 forms in which accounts and records has to be maintained. Now we will cover the additional document. The additional document which may be notified by commissioner for the respective class of persons. In the rules, they have mentioned 2 to 3 persons, 2 to 3 registered persons in respect of which the additional documents has to be maintained. First of all, we will cover in respect of works contract. In respect of works contract, that registered person has to maintain below 5 things: the name and addresses of the person on whose behalf the works contract has been executed. Second, the description, value, and quantity of goods or services received from the execution of works contract. Third, description, value, and quantity of goods and services utilized in the execution of works contract. Fourth, the details of the payments received in respect of each work contract. And the last one, name and addresses of suppliers from whom he has received the goods or services. So these were the 5 additional documents which are to be maintained by the registered person who has been registered as a works contract service provider. The second one, in case of an agent, there are also 5 things in case of an agent. First one, the particulars of authorization received by him from each principal to receive or supply goods or services on behalf of such principal separately. Second one, particulars including description, value, and quantity of goods and services received on behalf of every principal. Third one, particulars including description, value, and quantity of goods or services supplied on behalf of every principal. Fourth one, details of accounts furnished that has to be furnished to every principal. And the last one, tax paid on receipts or on supplies of goods affected on behalf of every principal. So in case of an agent, these were the documents which are to be maintained by him in respect of each and every principal. The contract that has been made by the agent in respect of each and every principal, he has to maintain each and every document that has been told by me, that in case of each and every principal. The third one, owner or operator of godowns, warehouses, and transporter. In that case, the godown and the warehouse owners have to maintain records for such period till time the goods remain in their warehouse, including the dispatch, movement, receipts, disposal of such goods. So for the time period the goods remains in their warehouses, for that period they have to maintain the four types of accounts: dispatch of such goods, movement, receipts, and the disposal of such goods. In respect of this, the accounts are to be maintained. Transporters also have to maintain the records of goods transported, delivered, and the goods stored, and the goods which are stored in transit. So these were the additional documents that are to be maintained by the respective owners under the registered person. So next, now suppose you are not in a position to maintain the books of accounts. So the registered person has to take the written permission from the commissioner, and he has to record the reasons in writing for that reasons, that why he is not able to, that why he is not in a position to maintain such books of accounts. Perfect. Next one. So suppose, so now you are maintaining the books and accounts under GST, so that books and accounts are liable to be audited. So what is the limit under audit, and who has to file the annual return under GST? Let's see. So basically under GST, the audit limit is rupees 2 crores. The registered person who are having the turnover more than 2 crore, their books of accounts are liable to be audited. Also, they have to file annual return under section 44. And from financial year 17-18 to financial year 19-20, GSTR 9, the return under section 44, GSTR 9 annual return has been made optional for turnover up to rupees 2 crore. And for financial year 18-19 and for financial year 19-20, the audit limit was increased from 2 crore to rupees 5 crore. However, in the recent finance bill, as you all are aware, of 21-22, the GST audit has been removed, and in place of that, you have to now only file the annual return along with the self-attested reconciliation statement with your annual financial statements. So the audit has to be done by the chartered accountant or the cost accountant, and also no audit is required to the Department of Central Government, State Government, Local Authority if the books of accounts have been audited by C&AG. Perfect. So this was about audit under GST. Now, what are the penal provisions for non-maintenance of accounts and records in the GST? Section 125 provides the general penalty if you're not contravening any provisions of this act or rules. Along with this, suppose if you forget to mention any place as an additional place in your registration certificate, then the goods found at such premise shall be assessed by the officer as if such goods are supplied by you, and the amount of tax to be paid by such registered person. Under section 125, the general penalty is levied up to rupees 25,000 for each year in respect of which the accounts and records have not been maintained. Now, up to which period the accounts have to be retained by such registered person? Under Income Tax Act, such retention period is of 8 years, and under GST law, such retention period is up to 72 months, that is for 6 years. Such period of retention has to be counted from the due date of filing of annual return, and as and when such due date of filing of return extends, the retention period for maintaining the books of accounts for such respective period also stand extended. Now, when your books of accounts, when the registered person is a party to appeal, revision, proceedings, or investigation, then the limit of then the time period for retaining such books of accounts shall be counted 1 year after the final disposal of appeals, revision, proceedings, or investigation, or until expiry of 72 months from the due date of filing of annual return, whichever is later. So this was the time limit when the registered person is a party to appeal revision proceedings and investigation. So up to here, this is all about accounts and records that has to be maintained under GST by the registered person. Next, we will cover the returns. What are the returns? How many returns and the forms under GST? So Chapter 9 of the CGST Act covers the sections from 37 to 48, and Chapter 8 of the CGST rules covers the rules 59 to 84 in respect of returns under GST. So basically, in the next 3 to 4 slides, we will see that how type of the returns and the scope of each and every return that has to be filed by the which register person. So starting with in respect of GSTR 1, the details of outward supplies, including the debit notes, credit notes made by the registered person, and this has to be filed by the casual taxable persons also. So GSTR 1 is an outward statement that has to be filed by the registered person, including casual taxable person, and the due date for the same is 11th of the next month. And for quarterly, the respective due dates will follow. Now, GSTR 3B. GSTR 3B is nothing but the summary return of outward and inward supplies, and also in that you have to mention the RCM inward supplies also. Now, in respect of GSTR 3B, before 9th October 2019, there was a controversy that whether 3B is a return or not. Even the petitions were also filed in various high court questioning the legality of the form 3B, because the chain of GSTR 1, 2 and 3 was not maintained and as prescribed in the BAR Act. But the remaining two forms, that is 2 GSTR 2 and GSTR 3, are suspended, and in place of GSTR 3, now the 3B has been notified as a GST return. So the summary of outward and inward supplies has to be submitted in GSTR 3B every month before the 20th of the following month. Now, GSTR 4. GSTR 4 has to be filed by the composition taxable persons. GSTR 5 has to be filed by the non-resident taxable persons. Now, who are the non-resident taxable persons? Means the persons who occasionally undertakes the transactions involving the supply of goods or services of both, whether as a principal or agent or in any other capacity. The most important, who has no fixed place of business or residence in India. So the person who are not having the fixed place of business or residence in India will be following in the NRTP, and they have to file the GSTR 5 return. Now, GSTR 5A. GSTR 5A is applicable to the non-resident suppliers who are supplying the OIDAR services, providing services to the non-resident, non-taxable online recipient. So now what is the OIDR services? Means the category of services provided through the medium of internet and received by the recipient online only without having any physical interface with the supplier of service. So in this case, there is no physical interface with the supplier of service. The recipient is also unknown and the supply is also unknown. The nature of these services are such that it can be provided online from a remote location outside the taxable territory. So for OIDR services provider, online information, data access and retrieval services. That is the meaning of OIDR services. So they have to file GSTR 5A. Now, GSTR 6, it has to be filed by the input service distributors. Second, GSTR 7. GSTR 7 has to be filed by the registered person who are deducting TDS. Now, it has been prescribed under section 51 that the person who have to deduct TDS and deposit in the name of the vendors, most of government departments are covered under this section. Second, GSTR 8. Now, GSTR 8 is applicable to the persons, to registered persons who are deducting TCS under section 52. And here in this section, e-commerce operators will deduct TCS on remitting the payments to the supplier of goods supplied by those suppliers through e-commerce and deposit the same to the account of suppliers. Suppose you are selling the goods to the e-commerce operator. The e-commerce operator will receive the consideration from the recipient and they will deduct the TCS on that such amount and remit the remaining amount to the supplier. So they will be filing GSTR 8 and accordingly deposit the respective amount to the suppliers. Next, GSTR 9. As we have discussed, that GSTR 9 is an annual return and it has to be filed by every registered person other than ISD, section TDS, TCS 5152, CTPs, casual taxable persons, and NRTPs. These are the persons who don't have to file GSTR 9. Now, GSTR 9A, and it is an annual return for the composition taxable persons. GSTR 9B, it is an annual return for e-commerce operator who are liable to collect TCS under section 52. GSTR 9C, as we have discussed in the previous slides, that it is a reconciliation statement that has to be filed and attested by the chartered accountant or the cost accountant, and a copy of annual financial statements also to be attached with. Next, GSTR 10. Now, GSTR 10 is a final return, and every normal taxpayers who are not covered under the who are not liable to file GSTR 10, ISD, TDS, TCS, NRTPs, composition taxable persons. So these are the 5 persons who don't have to file GSTR 10, and the other than these, registered persons have to file GSTR 10. Now, when the registered person will be liable to file GSTR 10, registration when the registration of a registered person has been cancelled or surrendered, and also it is a statement of stock that has been held by such taxpayer on the day immediately preceding the date of cancellation. So on that stock, the remaining ITC will have to be reversed and it has to be certified by the respective chartered accountant. Now, the form GSTR 10 has to be filed within 3 months from the date of cancellation or the date of cancellation order, whichever is earlier. Suppose if you are not filing the GSTR 10 within 3 months, then the late fees for the each day of non-compliance will be 200 rupees per day. Now, in respect of GSTR 1, the UIN holders have to file GSTR 11. Now, GSTR 11. Now, what are the UIN holders? For foreign diplomatic missions and embassies which are not liable to taxes in the Indian territory, and the services provided by the foreign diplomatic missions located in India to any person in India is exempt, but most important, the services received by the foreign diplomatic missions is not exempt. However, they can take the refund of the tax paid on the inward supplies accordingly. Perfect. Now, these are the various statements and forms under GST other than returns. First of all, let's see each and every statement, when and to whom it is applicable. Now, what is GSTR 2A? As you all are aware, it is an automatic return generated for a taxpayer from his seller's GSTR 1, from the supplier's GSTR 1. Now, what is 2B? GSTR 2B. It provides the eligible and the ineligible input tax credit for each month, similar to GSTR 2A, but it remains constant for a period. As you are aware that from the 13th of the next month, the GSTR 2B will remain constant, and the ITC provided in GSTR 2B will be auto-populated in GSTR 3B of the registered person, and such ITC has to be claimed by the registered person while filing GSTR 3B. IFF, Invoice Furnishing Facility. Now, it is a facility where the quarterly GSTR 1 filers can choose the option to upload their B2B invoices every month, and it is a QRMP scheme, quarterly return and monthly payment. So the return under this scheme has to be filed quarterly, but every month the statement has to be filed by such registered person to the recipient to whom they have supplied the B2B invoices. Now, there is no requirement to upload invoices in GSTR 1 if the same has been uploaded in the IFF. In the quarterly GSTR 1, suppose you have uploaded the 10 invoices in respect of the April month in the month of in IFF in the month of April only. So that 10 B2B invoices will not be uploaded again in the GSTR 1 for the quarter ending April to June. Now, GSTR 6A. Now, what is GSTR 6A? It is an automatically generated form based on the details provided by the suppliers of an input service distributor in their GSTR 1. So, the suppliers who are supplying services or supplying goods to the input service distributor, registered person, then the ITC of that registered person will be auto-populated in GSTR 6A to the registered persons who are liable to file GSTR 6. So who are liable to file GSTR 1, the ITC will be auto-populated in GSTR 2A and 2B, and the persons who are liable to file GSTR 6, their ITC will be auto-populated in GSTR 6A. Now, GSTR 4A. GSTR 4A is an auto-drafted document which is generated on the basis of data submitted or filed in Form GSTR 1 or GSTR 5 and filed Form GSTR 7 of the taxpayers where composition dealer is a recipient. So the suppliers who are filing their details in GSTR 1, 5 and GSTR 7, and on the other side the recipient is a composition taxable person, then such inward supplies will be auto-populated in GSTR 4A on the GSTN portal of the composition taxable person. Now, PMT 06. PMT 06 is nothing but a challan used for making payment of tax, interest, late fees, and penalties under the GST law. Usually, this form is used by the person who are falling under the regular taxation scheme. So there are two options. You are following the QRMP scheme and you are following the monthly scheme. If you're following the QRMP scheme, there will in the PMT 06 there are two options. If you're following QRMP scheme, you have to select such option, and accordingly you have to select the month for which you are depositing such tax, interest, and late fees. And if you're in the monthly scheme, then you have to go in the any other payment option. Now, CMP 08. CMP 08 is applicable to the composition dealer. Is a special statement come challan to declare the details or summary of his or her self-assessed tax payable for the given quarter. So this is simply a statement declaring the details of summary of the goods supplied, of the services supplied for the period of given quarter. Now, so these were the few forms and statements which we have covered. Now we will cover the other forms which are right now not that much practicable, but it was previously covered when the transition phase was occurring. So first of all, we will cover the transitional form 1. Now what is transitional form 1? It should be filed by every person having input tax credit on closing stock and migrated to GST from VAT, service tax, or central excise. Perfect. The balance of the closing stock held by a businessman as on 1st July 2017, the date when the GST was implemented, has to disclose in GSTR 1 to claim ITC on the old stock in the GST regime. There is a condition: the transferred input tax credit should be matched with the last filed return in the old regime. Suppose you are transferring the 1 lakh rupees credit from your excise return, then such 1 lakh rupees closing balance has to be mentioned, has to be there in the last filed return in the old regime, that is in the excise regime. Now, transitional form 2, second one. Now, what is transitional 2? Suppose you are a first stage or a second stage dealer. So in the old regime, the VAT dealer was not eligible for excise credit. So there was a loss of such credit to the dealers. On selling of such closing stock within 6 months from the implementation of GST, that is 1st July 2017, you will be eligible for claiming duties and taxes paid under the existing laws in respect of inputs and in respect of which you are not in a possession of invoice or other documents evidencing the payment of duty or tax needs to declare such stock in form GSTR transitional 1. Subsequently, such registered person has to file transitional form 2 at end of each tax period from the appointment date in which such stock was sold, and the CGST and SGST paid by the taxpayer, and claim ITC as applicable percentage of the tax paid under GST. So there is some calculation, precisely there is some calculation which has to be done for claiming such input tax credit in respect of the invoices in which the taxpayer is not in a possession. Perfect. Yes. Now we'll cover the ITC forms, input tax credit forms. There are 4 forms. ITC 01. The ITC 01 has to be filed in case of new GST registration. These forms are prescribed under section 18. Now, when the ITC 01 has to be filed, there are some attached conditions. We will see one by one. When an application for GST registration is made within 30 days of becoming liable to pay GST. So when you are becoming liable to pay GST, the registered person has to apply for registration within 30 days. And the most important, the inputs held on day immediately he becomes liable to pay tax shall be taken as a credit while filing Form ITC-01. Perfect. This was the first. Second, when any person opts for voluntary registration. In the previous one, the person was liable to pay GST. The second, any person who opts for voluntary registration, in that case also the inputs held in day immediately preceding his granted registration has to file ITC-01. The third, when any person opts for a composition scheme but continues to be registered as a regular taxable person, then the inputs and the capital goods held on day immediately preceding he becomes liable, he can take rate in that inputs in respect of inputs and capital goods by filing ITC-01. Fourth one, when an exempt supply of goods and services becomes taxable, then in that respect also the inputs and capital goods held on immediately preceding he becomes taxable has to file the ITC-01 and accordingly claim the credit. So there were the four consequences where you are liable to file ITC-01. The first case where you are liable to take registration within 30 days, where the registered person opts for this voluntary registration. The third one, where you are going from, where the registered person goes from composition scheme to regular taxation scheme. And the fourth one, where the exempt supply of goods or services becomes the taxable supply. Now, the most important condition attached to this, if the invoice date is older than 1 year, then no ITC in respect of such invoices shall be claimed by the registered person. Now, ITC-02. What is ITC-02? It has to be filed by the registered person when there is a transfer of business through sale, merger, etc. So in case of transfer of business by a sale of by way of sale of business, merger, demerger, a registered person can transfer the input tax credit unutilized and available in the electronic credit ledger of the preceding taxable person into the another business by filing a simple declaration in form ITC-02. Suppose you are transferring or there is a change in constitution. So you are transferring from one business to another business. So there is a unutilized ITC in your electronic credit ledger. So that balance has to be transferred in the another business and you can accordingly utilize such input tax credit in the new business. The third one, ITC-02, ITC-03, that is in case of reversal of ITC. If you are a person who has opted, if you're a registered person who has opted for composition scheme this year only and has any item or has the item in which on which ITC availed, but it becomes exempt subsequently. So before you could utilize the product has become exempt. So you have to file ITC-03 reversing such claim of ITC on respect of such goods that has been goods or services that has been subsequently become exempt. Fourth one, ITC on goods sent to the job worker. So in this case, the principal of the goods has to submit a statement for every quarter, in respect of every quarter, containing the three details. First one, goods dispatched to the job worker. Second, the goods received from the job worker. And in respect of third one, goods sent from one job worker to another job worker. So these are the three relations in respect of which the ITC-04 has to be filed by the principal of such goods, and it has to be filed for every quarter. Now, so this was all for returns in the GST. Now we'll cover the e-way bill. Chapter 16 of the CGST rules covers the provisions in respect of e-way bill. So section 138, in that section, rule 138, which there are 5 sub rules also in that rules. First of all, we will see each and every rule. Rule 138, the details of information to be furnished prior to the commencement of goods and generation of e-way bill. 138A, documents and devices to be carried by a person in charge of the conveyance. 138B, verification of documents and conveyances. 138C, inspection and verification of goods. 138D, facility for uploading information regarding detention of vehicle. Sorry, 138E, restriction on furnishing of information in Part A on informed e-way bill. So we will see each and every rule in detail. Now, what is e-way bill? It is nothing but the compliance mechanism. It is a compliance mechanism that has to be interfaced through digital form. Perfect. And it has to be generated. The bill has to be e-way bill has to be generated before the commencement of movement of goods. Now, without its generation, the movement of goods is not possible. Perfect. And the relevant information from the tax invoice has to be uploaded on GSTN portal. So first of all, it is a compliance mechanism. Perfect. The condition attached to it that it has to be generated before commencement of goods, movement of goods. And the third one, the details that has to be uploaded on GSTN portal have to be fetched from the tax invoice prepared by the registered person. Next, who are required? The person who are required to generate the e-way bill. Every registered person. So here the registered person covers the both. The supplier can also generate the e-way bill and the recipient can also generate the e-way bill. Every registered person, whether he is a supplier or recipient, who causes the movement of goods. Now, the cause for movement of goods has to be in respect of three relations. First of all, the relation in respect of supply. The second, the relation for the reasons other than supply, and it can be in relation due to inward supply from an unregistered person. So these are the three relations which causes the movement of goods, and in respect of this, the registered person has to generate the e-way bill. So there will be a question that what can be the reasons other than supply. So the reasons other than supply will cover the export, import, job work, semi-knockdown condition goods, completely knockdown condition goods where the recipient is not known, line sales, sales return, exhibition or fairs. For own use you are getting the goods, sale on approval basis. So this can be the reasons other than supply where the e-way bill generation is the requirement. Now, who are required to generate the e-way bill? We have seen in the previous slide. Now, when the e-way bill has to be required to be generated, there is a mandatory generation in respect of two relations. First of all, where the consignment value exceeds rupees 50,000. In that case, the registered person has to generate e-way bill. And the second one, irrespective of the value of consignment, where the supplier who are exempted from registration, the persons who are exempted from registration under section 24(1) and 24 subsection 2, where the handicraft goods are transported from one state to another state. In that respect, there is a mandatory generation in respective of consignment value, and where the job worker and the principal is located in different state. In respect of this also, the mandatory generation is there, and there is no bar of consignment value. Perfect. Now there will be a question that what is the consignment value? The consignment value is nothing but the transaction value as per the section 15 declare in tax invoice, bill of supply or delivery challan, and also most important, and also it will include the tax charge in the invoice. So the consignment value is a transaction value as per section 15 of the CGST Act plus the taxes CGST Act, SGST and IGST that has been charged on in the tax invoice will also include in it, and it will comprise the consignment value. In short, the total invoice value shall be your consignment value. But important, if you are supplying both exempted and taxable goods together, then the value of exempted goods will not be counted for consignment value, and the invoice value of taxable supply shall be considered for determining the consignment value limit of 50,000. Suppose if you are supplying the exempted goods amounting to rupees 40,000 and you are supplying taxable goods amounting to invoice value of 60,000. So here the total value comes to 1,10,000, which is more than 50,000, but the but the value of exempted goods will not be counted in the consignment value limit, and the 60,000, that is invoice value of taxable goods, will be counted for consignment value, and the e-way generation will be mandatory. Now, so this is a compliance mechanism. There has to be some benefits attached to it. So it is a hassle-free movement. It will provide the hassle-free movement. There will be a track of movement of goods under this system. There will be no need for separate transit pass for every state. One e-way bill will be valid throughout the country for the movement of goods. However, the government has now integrated the e-way bill with the FASTag and would help to find the location of the vehicle and when and how many times it has crossed the national highway toll plazas, and also it will help to track the movement of goods. So the FASTag services have been attached to the have been integrated to the e-way bill, and it will help to locate the passing of the vehicles to and fro from each and every toll plaza. How many times it has crossed each and every toll plaza coming on the way of the distance covered in e-way bill. Third one, control tax evasion. These provisions are helping in reducing the disparities between the actual value of the sale and that reported in e-way bills. Every e-way bill generated has to be matched at the invoice level with the entries uploaded by taxpayers in their monthly GSTR1 for outward supplies. Perfect. So it will lead to control the tax evasions. And the last one, it will eliminate the state boundaries checkpost. Since July 2017, the checkposts are now eliminated as the job was to find out if sales tax under the old regime for the goods has been paid or not. And now the sales tax is no more applicable. The GST has came now. So they have removed in the new regime, but still the mobile courts will continue to check the defaulters and violators. There will be a mobile squad to inspect your vehicle and the documents carrying with the e-way bill. Now, what we have seen, what is e-way bill, who is required to generate e-way bill, what is the concept, what is the limit to be checked while before generating the e-way bill. Now, what are the contents of the e-way bill, what are the things that have to be mentioned in the e-way bill. So the e-way bill has been partitioned into two parts, part A and part B. Part A will contain the basic details and part B will contain the details relating to vehicle which is used for carrying such goods. In part A, the GSTN of the supplier, the GSTN of the recipient, place of dispatch, along with the PIN code, place of delivery, the document number as you have mentioned in the invoice, bill of supply, etc. The document date, value of goods, the HSN codes up to 5 CR. Now it has the HSN codes is applicable now up to 5 CR, 2 digits, and above 5 CR, 4 digits accordingly. And in part B, the details will be relating to the vehicle number if you're transporting to road, transport document, goods receipt number, railway receipt number, etc. There is an option if the distance is up to within 50 kilometers state or UT in case of transportation from place of business to a transporter place. So if you are carrying the goods from your place of business to a transporter place, so up to 50 kilometers, there is no requirement to generate the e-way bill in respect of the goods you're transporting from a place of business to the transporter's premises. Now, here I will show you the practical applicability, how we have to prepare the e-way bill and the two parts, part A and part B, how it is showing in the e-way bill. Let me share you the screen. Hope it is visible. So this is the e-way bill website where I will click on login. I will give the ID password to this. So here we have login on the e-way bill website. So this is the dashboard of e-way bill. Now here on the left hand side, there is a tab showing the e-way bill where there are many options. The first option is a generate new. Second one is a generate bulk where you have to update the part B, that is the vehicle details, where you have to update the vehicle details in a bulk. change to multi-vehicle. There are many options in the EV bill. So we will see the basic option where we are generating the basic EV bill. Now I will click the generate new option. Here you will see that these are the details. I can show the transaction details, bill from details, dispatch from, bill to, ship to, item details. So these are the details which are contained in part A of the EV bill, and below there is a part B details which shows the details in relation to the vehicle. So in part A, in case of transaction details, there is a supply type, that is inward or outward. You are receiving the goods or you're supplying the goods. Accordingly, you have to select. There is a subtype, that can be reasons, that can be supply, or that can be reasons other than supply. That is export, job work, SKD, CKD, lots, recipient not known, for your own use. As you have seen in the previous slide, I have mentioned that there can be three relations in respect of supply, in respect of reasons other than supply, and in respect of inward supplies from an unregistered person. So this is a second relation where there is a reasons other than supply. Here you have to mention the document type. In document type, you have to click the tax invoice or bill of supply. Accordingly, the document number, this can be the tax invoice number, or this can be the bill of supply number. The document date, the invoice date has to be mentioned. Now the transaction type, there are four transaction type. It can be regular, where the recipient, where there is a recipient and supply. It can be bill to or ship to, where the goods are to be supplied to a person other than the recipient, where there is a bill from and dispatch from, the goods that have to be dispatched from other registered premise. And there can be combination of 2 and 3. There can be 4 parties involved in this EV bill. So this is a bill from details. The bill from details will will automatically fetch according to your registered person. It is a bill to whom you have to sell the goods, to whom you are supplying the goods, and that can be shipped to. The bill to ship to details can differ accordingly. The item details, in item details you have to mention the product name, description of the product, hsn accordingly 4 digit, 6 digit, 8 digit. The quantitative details, the unit, this is a UQC, unit quantity code. Here you can see these are the unit quantity codes. In case of bags it is a BAG, in case of metric tons it is an MTS, in case of PCs it is a PCS. So accordingly applicable EQC you will be mentioning here. This is a taxable value. You have to mention from the invoice the details that have been mentioned by you in tax invoice, as it is the details have to be copied here. The rate of tax you will select accordingly in case of CGST, IGST, and SGST. If there is any other amount that you have charged, then you have to mention in the other amounts. The total invoice amount will be reflecting here. This has to be compulsorily matched with the tax invoice you are supplying along with. Now here, the transportation details. In case of transportation details, there is a transporter ID and transporter name. So every transporter has to take the transporter ID, or he will be having his GST number. So let me mention here the transporter ID. I will show you. As soon as I mention the transporter ID, the transporter name will automatically reflect here. If he has a transporter ID, he can also mention. You can also mention the transporter ID. Now, suppose I have to supply the goods to Delhi. So let me mention the GSTN of the recipient. As soon as I enter the GSTN of the recipient, the details of the recipient will automatically be fetched by the EV bill portal. So, and accordingly, the distance has to be calculated here. So as I will mention the quantitative details, accordingly the approximate distance in kilometers will be counted by the EV bill portal. You can vary this, you can add plus 10% or accordingly the distances. So this was the part A of EV bill, and below there is a part B. In part B, you have to select the mode, through which mode you are supplying such goods, through road, rail, air, or ship. Accordingly, you will select the vehicle type, the regular or over-dimensional cargo. We will see in the next slide what is over-dimensional cargo. The vehicle number you will be mentioning, and the transporter document and date. So basically, these are the details which will be filed by the transporter which will be filed by the transporter. So you have to fill only part A and give it to a transporter. Before such movement, the transporter will fill the part B details. The registered person can also fill the part B, and the transporter can also fill the part B. So this was all about the EV bill. Now, okay, back to our slides. Now, we have seen the practical approach up to here. We will see the validity of e-way bill. Now, in case of vehicles other than the over-dimensional cargo, the validity up to 100 kilometer is for a 1 day, and for every additional 100 kilometer, the one additional day will be provided. So in our case, there was a 960 kilometers from Ahmedabad to Delhi. So the total then the validity of such e-way bill will be for a 10 days. Perfect. 100 kilo up to 100 kilometer the 1 day, and for additional kilometer or part thereof, for suppose we are having the 960 kilometers. Perfect. So up to 900 kilometer there were 9 days, and for 60 kilometers the additional 1 day, for every additional 100 kilometer or part thereof the additional 1 day has been provided, and total comes to 10 days. Now in case of over dimensional cargo, the validity is up to for 20 kilometers, up to 20 kilometers the validity will be of 1 day, and for every additional 20 kilometers or part thereof the additional 1 day will be accordingly provided. Suppose now the validity of the e-way bill commences when the validity will commence upon the updation of vehicle number for the first time by the supplier or the recipient or the transporter in part B of the e-way bill. We have seen practically there were two parts, part A and part B. In part A, you are mentioning the basic details that has been provided in tax invoice. In part B, you are mentioning the details in relation to the vehicle. So as soon as you mention the vehicle number in part B of your e-way bill, the validity will commence from that day. Now, the validity can be extended. This validity can also be extended 4 hours before and 4 hours after the expiry of e-way bill period. There is an option on the expiry time and date before 4 hours or after 4 hours. You can extend such validity. We'll take one example. Suppose the e-way bill has been generated on 4th April at 10 a.m. in the morning, covering the distance of 960 kilometers, as we have seen in our example practically. Now, the validity is for 10 days. So the e-way bill is valid till 13th April up to 12 a.m. Suppose there is a breakdown on 10th April and it will take 2 days to repair the vehicle. Now the option to extend the validity is available after 8 a.m. on 10th April and up to 4 a.m. on 14th April. So this is the example where you can extend the validity before 4 hours of your validation expiry period and after 4 hours of your validation expiry period. Please note that currently a maximum distance of 3000 kilometers can be entered in the distance field while generation of e-way bill online. So where we have seen the approximate kilometers were coming practically on the portal up to 960 kilometers. There you can mention up to 3000 kilometers only. Now, the non-requirement of e-way bill, who are not required to generate the e-way bill. In case of transportation of non-taxable goods, LPG, kerosene, jewelry, precious items, currency, postal baggage, used personal effects, empty cargo container. These are the goods in case where no e-way bill is required. Also, where the consignment value is less than 50,000, in that case also e-way bill is not required. When you are transporting the goods by a non-motorized vehicle conveyance, that is the horse cart, manual carts, etc. And also where the goods are transported to or from the Ministry of Defense, and the goods are transit to or from Nepal or Bhutan. Also, where there is a no supply, as mentioned under the Schedule 3 of the CGST Act. Also, where the supply is under customs supervision. Okay. Now, important. Though the exemption is provided, but make sure you are carrying the other documents like tax invoice, delivery challenge, bill of supply that are in accordance with the rules and regulations of the GST Act. Now, suppose the registered person has to cancel or the recipient has to reject the e-way bill, then what is the time duration to cancel or reject? And also there is a time duration to accept, and after the time duration, the e-way bill will be deemed accepted. If the acceptance or rejection is not communicated within 72 hours from the time generation of e-way bill, so the acceptance or rejection is not communicated within 72 hours from the time generation of e-way bill, then such e-way bill has deemed to be accepted by the recipient. And when to cancel the e-way bill? If the goods were never transported or not transported as per the details furnished in the e-way bill, then such cancellation has to be done within 24 hours of the generation. Also, there are the 4 conditions attached to the cancellation of e-way bill. First, e-way bill can be cancelled by the generator of such e-way bill only. The person who has generated the e-way bill can only cancel the such generated e-way bill. Second, the time limit to cancel is up to 24 hours of generation of the e-way bill. Third, once cancelled, it is illegal to use such e-way bill. Fourth, if the e-way bill verified by any empowered officer, it cannot be cancelled. Suppose your vehicle is intercepted and your e-way bill is verified by such mobile squad or any officer, then such e-way bill cannot be cancelled by the registered person. Now, inspection of e-way bill. So the 2 persons have got the right, the commissioner has got the right to inspect any conveyance, and he has also the right to install radio frequency identification device reader, and also has a right to physical verify the conveyance. Also, what are the rights of the person? If the vehicle detained for more than 30 minutes, what are the rights of the registered person? If a vehicle has been detained for more than 30 minutes, transporter may upload the information in GST e-way bill 04 on common portal. Now, when the goods are in movement, a proper officer can inspect or intercept your vehicle. The proper officer shall verify all the documents that the transporter is carrying, including an e-way bill, invoice, etc. However, the officer cannot conduct another physical verification of the same goods when a physical verification has already been conducted in any state or union territory. Perfect. So the same goods cannot be verified again and again in each and every state. Once verified in one state, it cannot be verified in any other state. As an exception, the vehicle may be stopped if the officer has specific information about the tax evasion. They can stop your vehicle and intercept your conveyance. Perfect. Now, restriction on furnishing of e-way bill. The persons can be restricted from furnishing the details on e-way bill portal. The 2 taxpayers. First, the composition. What are the non-compliances will be done, and they will be restricted before by generation of the e-way bill. In case of composition, if your returns are not furnished for the 2 consecutive tax periods, you will be restricted from generation of e-way bill. And in case of regular taxpayers, the returns are not furnished for consecutive period of 2 months. Suppose the registered person has not filed GST 3B for consecutively 2 months, then he will be restricted from generation of the e-way bill, and the generation of e-way bill will be blocked on GSTN portal. Such unblocking can be done by the registered person after filing the GST returns for the respective months, and such option is available on online portal only. You will practically see that how such option is available. Let me show you. Here you can see that there is a search option. In search option, you can see the bar update block status. We'll click here. On clicking the update bar status, you have to enter the GST number. Let me show you. As soon as I mention this GST number, here the table will display, which will show my GSTN, the trade name, the GSTN status, whether it is active or inactive, and the block status on e-way bill portal. Right now, the status of this GSTN has not been blocked on portal, but after blocking, the tab will come here, that is to update your block status. As soon as you file the returns, after filing such returns, you come on this portal and unblock your status from this tab. Perfect. So this was unblocking of the e-way bill, and now we will see the non-compliance of the e-way bill. What are the non-compliance we'll be covering in the e-way bill? Section 122 talks about the general panel provisions for moving goods without the cover of an invoice and e-way bill, and levy the penalty of rupees 10,000 or tax sought to be evaded, whichever is higher. So under section 122, it describes the general penalty, and the penalty can be levied up to 10,000 or tax evaded, whichever is higher. Now, under section 129, which is in relation to confiscation of goods and conveyance. If your goods and conveyance are detained under section 129, the release of such goods can be made only on making payment of applicable taxes and penalty on it. Now, under 129, the penalty is 100% of your applicable tax value, but the same, most important, but the same has been increased in the recent finance bill and has been made up to 200% of your tax value. Perfect. So if your vehicle is confiscated, goods and vehicle is confiscated in the 129, then the penalty will be levied up to 100% of your tax. And in case of exempted goods, it is 2% of the value of exempted goods or 25,000, whichever is less. So this was all about the e-way bill under GST. Now, the last topic for today's session, e-invoicing. The concept of e-invoicing was introduced in 35th Council meeting and has decided to implement the same. E-invoicing does not imply the generation of invoice on the e-way portal. This is a myth. Instead, e-invoicing involves the submission of an already generated standard invoice on a common e-invoice portal. So it's a mere submission as you are submitting the details for movement of goods on e-way bill portal. It's and under e-invoicing, it is a submission of your same details for the on the compliance portal of e-invoicing. Now, Chapter 6 of CGST rules covers the invoicing provision, and under that, rule 48 subrule 4 specifies the notified class of registered person. They have to prepare the invoice by uploading the specified particulars of your tax invoice, that you have prepared in GST INV 01 as per prescribed form on e-invoice and on invoice registration portal, that is IRP, and obtain an IRN number, that is invoice reference number, that has to be obtained by submitting the details as prescribed in tax invoice. Now, what is an e-invoice? E-invoice is an electronic authentication mechanism. What was e-way bill? It was a compliance mechanism for movement of goods, and it is an electronic mechanism of your tax invoice, authentication mechanism of your tax invoice. All business to business invoices generated by a business will have to be authenticated on the GSTN portal electronically. Invoice registration portal, that is IRP, will issue a unique identification number for every invoice, for every B2B invoice, called as an invoice reference number, that is IRN. Now, applicability of the e-invoicing, most important. From 1st October 2020, previously from 1st October 2020, it was made applicable to registered persons whose turnover was more than rupees 500 crore. Then from 1st January 2021, it was made applicable to the taxpayers whose turnover was more than 100 crore. Now, presently, from 1st April 2021, it is made applicable to the taxpayers whose aggregate turnover is more than rupees 50 crore. The QR code compliance is made to taxpayers whose aggregate turnover is more than 500 crore, but the same has been waived till 30th June 2021. And the applicability for counting of aggregate turnover for the prescribed limit has to be taken from the preceding financial year, starting from 2017-18 onwards. So in any of the preceding financial year, starting from 17-18, if your aggregate turnover is more than 50 crores, then the applicability of e-invoicing will be implemented to such taxable person and has to be complied from 1st April 2021. Now, what is required to be done for generation of e-way bill? All the details that has been mentioned in B2B invoices are to be uploaded on invoice registration portal, and After that, you have to generate a unique reference number and a dynamic QR code, which will be mentioned by the registered person on that B2B invoice, in respect of which the QR code and the IRN number has been generated. So these are the steps that have to be followed, and the IRN number is of 64 digit. Perfect. Now, what are the benefits? As also in e-way bill, we have seen the benefits of generation of e-way bill. Now in e-invoicing, we will see the benefits. First of all, mitigating the risk of tax leakage, frauds, and fake invoicing, as the details that has been as the details of the tax invoice issued by supplier to a recipient will have to be first uploaded on the government e-invoice portal. Second, minimize the invoice mismatches during the two-way reconciliation. As soon as you generate the e-way bill, as soon as you generate the e-invoice, the details that have been mentioned by the supplier will be auto-populated in your GSTR1. Also, the automated return filing process, as necessary details shall be auto-populated for various returns, and in case of e-way bill also. In e-way bill generation, there are some parts that have to be followed, but as soon as you generate your e-invoice, the details will be fetched by the GSTN portal and also the e-way bill portal, and accordingly your returns and e-way bill will be generated. There is a one-time reporting of the invoice details for all your GSTN filings. As soon as you mention the details on invoice portal, there is no requirement to again mention the details in your GSTR1, as it will auto-populate. The real-time tracking of invoices prepared by the supplier. There is a real-time tracking, and the ease and precise claim of your input tax credit by the recipient. The recipient can easily claim the input tax credit. Now, how e-way bill will be generated after the e-invoicing is generated. There will be no change in the process of generation of e-way bill. However, an additional facility to generate e-way bill from IRN will be provided. A registered person has to follow the simple steps. First of all, upload the invoice to the IRP, invoice registration portal. Second, the GSTN will verify the details, and upon successful validation, the IRP will issue a unique number, as I said, IRN number, and called invoice reference number, and the QR code on the invoice. Third, the data will be transferred to the e-way bill portal, where section 12 of the e-invoice schema is reported. The APIs are used to generate e-way bill from IRN. A user should then log in to the e-way bill portal and enter the IRN of the invoice for which he has to generate the e-way bill. Part A and Part B will be auto-populated if condition to this, if the registered person has updated all the details while generating the invoice. So on e-way bill portal, Part A and Part B will be auto-populated if the requested details have been filled by you on your e-invoice portal. Click submit. If there are no errors, the e-way bill will be generated, and you can download the same in PDF form or in JSON form. Perfect. Now, we have seen there is a time limit in generation of e-way bill, that before movement of goods you have to generate the e-way bill. There was a time limit. Is there any time limit for generating the e-invoicing? No, there is no such time limit prescribed by the act, but keep in mind the invoice issued other than the invoice, if once the invoice is applicable to you and you are issuing the invoice without an invoice, then such invoice shall be considered as an invalid. So there is an attached condition that before issuing an invoice, you have to generate the e-invoice. Third, ITC claim valid document e-invoice. The e-invoice will be considered as a valid document under section 16 of CGST, section 16(2) of CGST Act for claiming input tax credit by the recipient. Also, the e-way bill without an valid invoice for which the movement of goods shall be for your tax invoice. So the tax invoice will be considered as a invalid as per e-invoicing provisions. So as soon as your tax invoice becomes invalid, the e-way bill generated for in respect of such goods shall also be considered as a void, and it will be considered as the goods are moving without the invoice. So accordingly, panel provisions will be applicable to you. Now, next one, the registered persons who are exempted from e-invoicing. First, SEZ unit. Second, insurance companies, banking companies, financial institutions, including NBFCs are also exempted. The registered person who are supplying the services of admission to the exhibition of cinematographic films in multiplex screens, example theaters and all. Fourth one, the registered person who are supplying passenger transport services, and the last one, GTA, goods transportation agencies. These are the person who have been exempted from e-invoicing. Now, is there any modification or cancellation of e-invoice? No. The e-invoice once generated cannot be modified, but it can be cancelled. There is a time limit for cancellation of e-invoice. The time limit is within the 24 hours of generation of such e-invoice. So cancellation after 24 hours cannot be reported to the IRN portal. If you wish to cancel your e-invoice, then such cancellation has also to be reported to the invoice registration portal. Perfect. And you have to cancel electronically on e-invoice portal that tax invoice. The tax invoice once cancelled cannot be considered as a valid. Perfect. Taxpayers will have to be manually update or cancel the invoice on the GST portal before returns are filed. Suppose you have cancelled manually after 24 hours of generation of such e-invoice. So the invoice details will be auto-populated in your GSTR1, and you have to manually edit your GSTR1 and update the details for such cancelled invoices. Perfect. So before closing, we will practically see the website of e-invoice portal. Perfect. So there is a website einvoice1.gov.gst.gov.in. Here you will be clicking on login. Let me log in first. Oh, there's some issue on e-invoice portal. Let me log in again. So this is a dashboard of your e-invoice. So it is unlike the e-way bill portal. In e-way bill, you have seen on the left corner you are generating manually e-way bill, but here there is no manual option of generation of e-way bill. The accounting softwares are integrated with the e-invoicing portal, and in that accounting software you have to generate one JSON file that will be uploaded here by the registered person, and the details that you mention in the accounting software, same details have to be fetched from your tax invoice that you have prepared. The details will be auto populated here, and the EIRN number, that is invoice reference number, will be generated, and the QR code will also be generated accordingly. So this is a e-invoice portal you all have seen, and this was all about e-invoicing. And these are the 4 contents I have covered today: accounts and records, returns, e-invoicing, and e-way bill. If anyone has queries, then they can question.